Hello, Anne here with Nurtured Noggins, and I want to welcome you to our live broadcast today. We're going to talk today about childcare and your baby. And it's probably one of the biggest decisions that you'll make, one of the first big decisions that you will make for your baby once they're born is if you're going to be going back to work pretty quick. What are you going to do? What are your options for childcare? And so it's kind of like one of those, you just really are not quite sure what you're going to do. And so I thought it might be good for us to take a look at a lot of different aspects of childcare, some of the different options that you have, and just sort of get a little bit of a lesson on what to look for and just the things that you need to know as you begin this search. First of all, childcare centers oftentimes have a wait list. And so if you are expecting a baby, even planning on getting pregnant, sometimes it's a good idea to go ahead and start the search for a childcare center long before your baby is born because they have wait lists. Sometimes the wait lists are quite long, months. I've even heard of schools having years long wait lists. And so that's one thing just to be aware of is knowing what the kind of the feel of that is with the schools that you're interested in. But let's kind of break down some different things that you need to know about making this decision. So first of all, you need to know what your options are. The first option, and probably one of the most common options that new parents use, is a family member who is able to take care of the baby while you are going back to work. And this is a great option and certainly the most comfortable. That you already know this person, they know you just have all the stuff together. It's a great fit when it works. So that is probably the first option that, especially with our really young babies, that we would take a look at. The second option would be someone coming to your house and taking care of your baby there, kind of like a nanny, a sitter, an au pair, whatever it is that, however you name them, but it's a person who comes and takes care of your child only or your children only. And that is either at your home or in their home. And so that would be probably a relatively expensive option, a great option because then you really have lots of great control and you're able to really have lots of input on what happens during the day. One of the cons of this is that if that person gets sick or suddenly quits or is unavailable, there's not a lot of backup. And so that is something that would be something to consider with that option. The second option is a licensed family day home. And this is when a person opens up their home and then just takes children in. They can take different numbers of kids depending on the spaces that they have available and the regulations and licensing for your particular area, your state, or where you live. Licensed family day homes are a great option, and a lot of people prefer a family day home over a child care center because, for one thing, it's obviously more homey, but also it's more personal, and oftentimes there's a wide variety of ages there. So it's a little bit more like a family setting instead of a room where you've just got a bunch of babies all the same age. So a family day home is a great option for your baby. And then we've also got childcare centers. And of course, childcare centers, you're familiar with those. They are what is commonly used for childcare. But there's so many different varieties of childcare centers. And so if you just think about it, there's, childcares in churches, and there's big chains of childcare centers. There's privately owned centers. There's public schools that offer childcare. There's nonprofits that offer childcare. There's gymnastics programs that offer childcare. It just everywhere. There's lots and lots of different options. And so knowing what you're looking for when you look at these childcare centers is a really important thing because there is a lot of wide variety of quality amongst all of these different places. I have worked in a job where I've gone to centers. That's what I did every day. I went to daycare centers and worked with teachers and coached and mentored them in early childhood practices. And so So I've seen a lot. I've seen the very best, and I've also seen some that literally I cried in the parking lot because it made me hurt so much to see children in places where they were not being, it just wasn't the best for them. And so you need to know what you're looking for when you go to these schools. So first of all, you need to know that child care centers are regulated by licensing agencies, state agencies. And so they have tons and tons and tons of regulations that they have to follow. This is the regulations for the state of Texas. Look at all that. All of those rules and regulations have to be followed by every person who steps foot into that center. Licensing reps can drop in and do a spot check anytime they want, and they can ask to see proof of all of these things being followed. And so that information is public knowledge. And so figure it out in your state how to check the school's record. You can see where they're, where they were not meeting their standards and see what those things are. Because there's so many, I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, you got to have a little bit of grace and know that not everybody's going to be following everything to the nickel every single time the person comes. But watch for the biggies, and you know what those are. Those would be children not being watched properly, or some of those big ones. The regulations have different weights. So check that out. Just know that that's public information. There are standards of care. This is minimum standards, which means that's the very baseline. This is the minimum. You want to have a school that goes well above all of these regulations, and that would be a high quality center. There is a governing or accreditation system in early childhood, NACE, the National Association for the Education of Young Children. And if you can find an accredited center in your town, that would be a great place to start your search. The process of becoming accredited is really stringent, and it's very wonderful. And the schools who are willing to go through that process, they are top notch. Those are folks who really care about offering the very best for your child. And so what they are following is developmentally appropriate practices, which is a kind of a common thing that you need to know about and ask about. Are you following the developmentally appropriate practices for the age child that you care for? So those are just some things to know about the centers themselves. There's other accreditations as well. As you look at different centers, you're going to find different letters around accreditations, and I'm not well versed in all of those, but they will tell you about them, and they can let you know what their accreditations mean. As you go to visit centers, and it'll look a little different now with COVID. I'm not quite sure what how folks are doing it. I'm sure it's different in every location, but you do need to have a physical visit, as much as you can. And when you go in, these are some things to look for. Is the environment, is it clean and bright and cheery and inviting for children? Most child care centers are, but just take a look at what you hear. Do you hear a lot of crying when you walk in the door? Do you hear adults raising their voices? Those are good things to listen for. What do you smell? There's a real big difference between a musty kind of not clean smell versus the smell of a dirty diaper. You know that centers are going to have that, but just listen to your senses and take note of those things as you walk through the school. Make sure that there's lots of inviting toys and activities and good, clean, big spaces for children to run and play and have all that. In the baby room, you want to have lots of open floor space and some really gentle ways for children to kind of pull up, and places for them to climb and roll and all of those kinds of things. The room itself needs to have plenty of activities and toys, but not so many that it feels cluttered or chaotic or messy or trippy, because you don't want the teachers in there to be tripping over toys as they're walking around. Priscilla, I see you. Yeah, that's a great idea. She says that her center doesn't let parents get on the wait list until they've taken a tour, which is a really good idea, because you want people to be informed before before they take a space on your list, for sure. Even with your littlest babies, the 6-month-olds, the 6-week-olds or 3-month-olds that start childcare pretty early, they need to have an outdoor space. There needs to be playgrounds even for the babies, because babies are required by licensing to go outside every day, but also it's good for them to go outside and to have the fresh air and to be in that different environment. Everybody needs to go outside every day, especially young children, but especially the babies. But those babies also need to be protected from the big kid play where there might be balls thrown accidentally and stuff like that. So it just needs to be a dedicated space. And of course, your licensing is going to require that and mandate that. But if you are in a family day home, you need to see, well, where's the baby going to go when you come outside and the different age kids are playing? That would be a good thing to ask. And one thing to look for with the staff is, first of all, the ratios. There are teacher-child ratios that need to be considered, and there are minimal ratios, and then there are suggested ratios. And so you want the number of children per teacher to be as low as possible. Good quality infant care would have about a 1-to-3 ratio. 1-to-2 would be great, probably kind of hard to find, but 1-to-3 is a pretty good ratio for infants in the infant room. I think that licensing, it's 1-to-4, probably 1-to-4. I hope it's not 1-to-5. But anyways, the ratios are real important. So know what's the current in your state and ask for something a little bit higher if you can get it. The longevity of the staff, how long they've been working at this school. Just, you can just kind of ask that question casually, but how long has your staff been employed? How long have you worked here? Turnover is a big problem in child care centers because it's not a high paying position. And so oftentimes people just can't afford to work there and live their life, unfortunately. And so, but longevity tells you a couple of things about that school. For one, it tells you that they're paying their teachers a decent wage. It also tells you that they've got good management, that the teachers are happy in their work, and that they are treated with respect and dignity, which is a really important thing for teachers of young children. It also means that they've got good relationships with the other staff members, which is, that's a really important thing. The emotional feel of the school has a lot to do with how things go for your child all day, every day. And so that's an important thing. How are they trained? What kind of ongoing training do they have? What's their professional development requirements? Is it just the minimum that the state requires, or do they go well above the minimum and give their teachers lots of great training every year? And so that's an important thing to know. And then as you are talking with teachers, I would just have, just in the back of your mind, just be watching them to see how responsive they are to children. If they're talking to you and answering your questions, and there's a baby over here who is, reaching out to them, either through crying or, calling out to them, and they're ignoring that baby, well, that's telling you something. That's telling you that that teacher might ignore your baby if there's another adult in the room. And so, I don't want to be too picky about that, but I do think that responsiveness is a really important thing to pay good, close attention to. It's one of the beacons of quality care is responsiveness to the children. Excuse me. And then the confidence in which they talk about their work, I think, is really important. Their ability to tell you what the kids in their class are doing, where they are developmentally, what they expect them to do next. That lets you know how they're doing as far as their knowledge of young children. And then personality matters a lot. If you are visiting with this teacher that is going to be caring for your baby all day long and there's not quite a personality connection, that's something to consider and to think about, because you want to feel as comfortable as you possibly can with who you're leaving your baby with. You want to gel, you want to connect. You guys are going to be partners in the care of your child. They're going to really be an important part of your life. And so you need to connect with those teachers that are going to be caring for them. Another thing that I think is really important is to, if you think that your child is going to be going to childcare for a number of years, and you're going in the infant room, go ahead and visit the toddler room, the pre-K room, the school age room, because hopefully you'll stay at that same center for a number of years. You want to see what's going on down the hall. It's a really important thing to know. Is this a place that is going to feel good for a number of years? It's a good thing for a child to stay put and to feel at home. A kid who goes to school in the infant room and they stay there throughout, they kind of own the place. They feel very comfortable. It's their second home. And the teachers there, they know that child. They might be 4 years old now, but they can tell that child stories. Hey, when you were 3 months old, this is what I remember. This is what I saw you do. And then there's just a really nice connection when there's that kind of longevity. So take a look at the older classrooms and see if that's going to be a place that you're going to want to stay for a while. It's really good to know the philosophy of the program. What are their thoughts about how children learn? What are the kind of activities and learning activities? What are their goals, their developmental goals for children? What do they expect that kids would know and be able to do at each age? And what do they expect them to be able to do when they enter public school or elementary school from their program? It's a really good thing to know what they do. Some schools have beautiful plans and they just do it so well. And then other schools just don't. So you want to know what you're getting yourself into. Even infant programs have curriculums and they have learning goals for their babies and they have developmental milestones that they are supporting your child with through the things that they do. Another thing to know about is what's the parent policy. Is it open door? Can you drop by any time and check on your baby? Do they have the cameras so you can see what's going on and monitor what's going on in the classroom while they're there? What are the communication policies? Can you call at any time? Can you call and talk to the teacher at any time? And if you can, then does that mean that teacher is going to be on the phone a lot throughout the day? If that's the case, that maybe not be such a great idea. So what's the policy? What's the way that they communicate with parents? You want it to be very open. You want them to be able to communicate with you, and you need to be able to communicate with them really easily. And most schools have a really great system in place. That's not usually a big deal, but it's certainly something to know about before you go in. So that's about it on what you would look for. And just, of course, there's tons more. And feel free anytime to message me and ask questions. I can certainly give you a little bit more detail about all of these things I've mentioned. But one thing that I think it's kind of good to know is that the caregivers, the teachers who care for young children, they have some messages for you as well. And here's a few of the things that they would like for you to know. If your baby is going to be coming to childcare, let's say at 3 months of age or 6 months, whatever age you are going to be starting the school, you need to know what their policies are. And here's the deal. At childcare, children don't sleep in swings. They don't sleep in car seats. They sleep in a crib on their back without a blanket and without a lovey or anything like that. That's the state regulations. And so you can do other things at home, of course, but if your child is used to only going to sleep by being in the swing and being lulled to sleep like that, and they have this requirement for falling asleep, it's a good idea to try to break that and get them in the habit of sleeping in a crib or in a space on their back so that they can, when they go to school, it's not quite such a hard transition. Anything that you can do at home to make that transition easier for you and for the baby is going to be very helpful. So that's one thing, is getting the sleep habits in order to match what the school does. Another thing that they would like for you to know is to expect incidents. They do everything that they can. They have eyes all over their heads. They are watching all the time. And I know this because I was an infant teacher for years and years, and I had 8 babies in my class with 1 to 2 people helping me, and still things would happen right underneath your nose. Those babies are fast. And so anytime you put 3 to 4 to 5 children in a space together, and those kids are mobile, and they begin getting mobile at 6 months of age. They begin to crawl and move. They're going to crawl on top of each other. You want them to be playing together, and you want the adults obviously to be down there with them playing and preventing this. But every now and again, it's going to happen where somebody's going to climb on somebody else, grab their face, maybe scratch with a fingernail that wasn't trimmed right, and those things will happen. It's just part of young children playing together. And so it's not the easiest thing to manage, especially if there's biting involved. And, that's just one of the things that comes up when you put young children together who don't speak yet. They will communicate with their mouth. And so just expect that those incidents will happen. It's a good thing to ask about as you're going through this interview process. How do you manage this? What are your things that you do when these kind of things come up? Behavior management is a really big thing that I didn't even mention earlier. And the last thing that the teachers would like for you to know is that the more independent your child can be as they walk into the school, walk into the classroom, the easier the goodbye will be. So, for example, if you have a child who's already walking, go ahead and let them walk into the room. Just, you can carry them till you get 3 feet from the door, put them down, and then hold their hand as you walk in the door and enter the room. It just makes that transition easier for the baby to walk in on their own 2 feet, look around, see what's going on, and at their eye level, they've got some toys right over there, and hopefully they'll be drawn towards that, and they'll go play and start their day. The whole, in your arms to the teacher's arms, oftentimes that just creates, just crying, and nobody wants that. You sure don't want to have that happening on a daily basis. And so that's just one little hint from the teachers, is to let your child walk in the door on their own if they can. Just as an aside, whenever I was working in a center, I just will tell you this also, your baby is going to give you a good hard cry when you say goodbye. That's what they do. And it's just part of the process of separating initially. And here's the secret. It doesn't last for long. Usually, I used to time it and then call the parents. 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 4 minutes, and he was fine. They just put up such a resistance because they love you and they don't want to say goodbye to you, just like you love them and you don't want to say goodbye to them. So goodbyes can be a little bit teary initially until everybody gets comfortable. So, and then the last thing I'm going to say is that I just encourage you to trust your gut. When you are a parent, you have it. You have a knowing inside of you. You know when things are good, and you know when things are off. And so if something doesn't feel quite right, then do what you need to do to address it and ask questions and observe and take in the information and then make your decision about how to respond. So there you go. Trust your baby in childcare. They are going to do really well if you find the good match. Trust the teachers to do their job. They are nice people. People who choose to work with young children are good-hearted people. Trust them and trust your decision. Once you make your decision, trust it, move forward with it, and odds are it's going to be just great. So I hope that helps you as you are facing this childcare question of what to do and how to do it. I do want to let you know that we are creating something it's called Birth School. And this is going to be a course that is designed specifically for people who are pregnant, around 7 months pregnant. And so if you know anybody, or if you are, in the last trimester of your pregnancy, then you're kind of looking towards the birth, and we are creating a resource for you where we're going to answer all of those big, gigantic questions about the things that are going to happen as you have the baby. How do you prepare? What do you do to prepare your body to breastfeed or to not breastfeed? Either way, you're going to have milk. So you've got to figure out how to manage that. We're going to look at what to take with you, what you need to remember, what you need to ask, how to set up the communication a relationship between yourself and the folks who are helping you, between yourself and your family at home who's not able to come and be there. Just all of those things that will help you have a great experience as you have your baby and bring them home. So be watching for that. It's called Birth School. And you can also go to nurturednoggins.com and get lots more information about children, development, and how to best understand your child and yourself as a parent. So that is all for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.